book can get me killed if the wrong people see it.
I didn't know it was you. Please don't hurt me.
I should have you torn apart for speaking like that.
Carl sends his regard.
You should turn around and leave.
Now, if there's one thing I've learned from murdering a town of innocents, giving a bunch of kids drugs, tricking a companion into being cannibalized, and selling another into slavery, it's that life is too short for other people, and typically I'm the catalyst. However, as per my agenda, I've set a bunch of irreversible actions into effect, some of which will be over quicker than most, like how I saved the sheriff from a life of prison at a ganger encampment so I could convince him to govern this town.
Have you gotten my pardon from the NCR yet?
As to which I killed him immediately and anyone associated with the protection of the town. Or some actions that would take longer to pan out. However, patience is the greatest virtue of a survivalist. I read that from a book I got from some homeless guy. Regardless, I had my heading, and that was directly to find someone dumb enough to fuel my addictions.
Hey.
And the hunt was over.
Couldn't get enough of talking to me the first time, huh? I had a run-in with this group calling themselves the Brotherhood of Steel. Do you know anything about them?
I used my vastly superior intellect to remind her how vastly inferior they were to my rich person weaponry.
I can't afford anything like that.
I asked her to join me, and she decided to spill the beans being a part of the faction.
Now you're talking. One thing you should know first, though. I ask you about the Brotherhood because I'm one of them.
Disgusting. Fortunately, that was just what I needed.
Thanks for taking a chance on a naive young girl from California with stars in her eyes and a pneumatic gauntlet on her hand. Let's hit the road, huh?
Well, she would hit the road eventually, but for now I needed her alive. So with that, I marched us straight into Cazador territory to prove her worth. Then, after her training was complete, I got her to help me kill an entire town worth of bandits, innocents, all the like, but that's not even the most interesting thing. What is the fact that a lightning bolt has enough energy to toast 100,000 slices of bread, as each bolt contains more than 5 billion joules of energy. So anyways, we made our valiant way to the Great Khan's trailer park. I immediately found out that the Khans were housing a member of the LARPers, which was useful.
Ah, the vaunted hero of the Legion. My name is Carl. Glorious Caesar has sent me as an emissary to the Great Khans as a token of our alliance.
And then I found someone who wanted to explain to me the entire lore of their people.
So the cub enters the wolf's den. The Great Khans came east, out of the NCR 14 years ago. They allied with Mr. House, the self-proclaimed master of New Vegas.
Blah, 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 something about the Boy Scouts and caravans and the butchering of all their people. I couldn't be bothered with this, so I left. And I went right to Boulder City to assist the fight there. Apparently the Boy Scouts and the trailer park hippies were fighting over who wanted to be wiped out second. So I marched in there to stop this nonsense.
You're that courier Benny wasted back in Good Springs. You're supposed to be dead.
First, I tried to convince him I was a ghost.
All right, quit f***ing around.
But after that speech check failed, I used an actual speech check to convince him to become a ghost.
I can't believe I'm doing this. But all right, the hostages can go. The NCR had better keep their end of the deal, though.
I headed back to the NCR patrol, who was looking pathetic as usual, just to find out.
I'm glad you're able to get my people freed, but there's a new problem. I just got orders to take out the Great Khans, hostages or not.
He said that like it was a problem. I gave him permission to fight, like a good dog.
You cut a deal with the Khans? Attacking them now doesn't feel right. But orders are orders.
And so we, and by we I mean the Boy Scouts exclusively so I didn't have to waste my ammo, fought across the broken city to finish off the trailer park hippies. I observed them, like animals in a zoo, and I had a season pass. Plus free meals after the show.
For the Brotherhood.
After the Boy Scouts had obliterated themselves, I waltzed in and finished off the last of the hippies myself, and just like that, dinner was served. And I'll be honest, heading back to the Great Trailer Park did have me concerned that I botched my relationship with them, but it turns out they still loved me here.
You're no friend to the Great Khans. You should turn around and leave.
Ignoring her garbage advice, I marched straight up to the leader's cabin and was greeted kindly by the clan daddy.
I've got little enough patience for you. Consider your words carefully.
With that, I did, and I told him to break his alliance with the LARPers.
Have you now? Well, you're a bold one, I'll give you that.
That he was just using them.
Caesar's representative tells a different tale. I won't hear any more talk against Caesar or his alliance.
but it didn't work, so I left, only to be stopped by someone who actually cared.
I heard you try to convince Papa Khan not to join with Caesar's Legion. Me, Jack, Diane, and Melissa. If you can convince all of us that allying with Caesar is a bad idea, you might be able to sway him.
Luckily, anyone that doesn't respect my threats on their life just dies, so I can pretty much convince anyone of anything.
Look, kitty cat, me and Diane, we don't dig on that politics stuff, savvy?
I started by telling these two wannabe addicts that Clarkson would probably just sell them into a life of prostitution.
Dude, what a total haul. Yeah, okay, me and Diane got your back.
And that seemed to do the trick. But as I headed to my next victim...
Carl sends his regards.
Fortunately enough, the vape pen sticking out of my nostrils, pack of lit cigarettes in my mouth, one of them chopped into a straw to drink whiskey out of an old boot stuck in my teeth from cannibalizing a manhole, seems to have a certain effect on people. So I killed him, along with all his friends, so they wouldn't tattle to Master Lartman on me. I headed back to the only trailer in the park with a washroom, where one of the Legion's lackeys sat proudly at the head table.
Caesar's veterans will arrive from Arizona soon.
So, like a drunk uncle at your wedding, I marched straight up to embarrass him.
Join? Oh, no, I simply couldn't. That is, I'm not worthy of such an honor.
With every word I spoke, the more he choked on them, like I was spitting tobacco straight into his throat, until the finishing blow.
Enough! How dare you compare Caesar's finest to this tribe of savages? The mightiest great Khan is scarcely a match for a Legion recruit.
And like that, another peaceful negotiation.
Glad that's over.
I only had one more person to convince, so I fought my way across the wasteland against wild animals like deathclaws, innocent civilians, rabid dogs, and bigger deathclaws. And I finally came across someone who saw a flapping bird as hairstyle inspiration.
That's close enough. What do you want with the Great Khans?
With my tongue of silver, I convinced her to turn against the Legion immediately after meeting her only seconds ago.
What do you mean aren't allowed to serve? That lying little weasel. You can tell Papa I won't support an alliance.
The final objective, to do whatever it was I was going to do, I hadn't decided yet, was to steal a ledger from the Legion themselves to expose all their lies. Oh, hey Arcade.
I've run out of witty ways.
And headed back to the trailer park to finish the job.
Let me see. This is even worse than I thought. Okay, you have my support.
With that, the trailer park fella fell into line.
All four of my most trusted advisors have told me we should break our alliance. Tell me then, if I don't join with Caesar's Legion, where will I find my tribe's lost glory?
So, with gaining the complete trust to guide the future of the entire clan, I convinced them to kill themselves in a suicide run at Hoover Dam when the time would come.
I should have you torn apart for speaking like that, but maybe you're right. If the Khans are to be immortal, we must make our own destiny.
After his sentimental garbage spewing, I told him, I don't care.
Whatever your motivation was, I think we owe you a debt.
And had gained the full support of the Khans. Somehow, why? Why would they even agree to that? So anyways, to better understand the weaknesses of my companion, I asked what she liked, and without barfing all over the place this time. After barely catching what she said, because I was staring at a footprint in the dirt, I did hear
a dress. Something that's eye-catching and sexy, but also says, don't f*** with me.
Which reminded me, I had exactly just that.
You're making me carry the heavy stuff, aren't you?
And there I was, doing a kind deed for what could have been the first time ever. I gave a dress that I ripped off the corpse of a cannibal I slaughtered with a can of beans to a woman I was using to murder her entire family and faction.
For me? Do you mean it? No, it's too much. Well, okay, but it's too much. Oh, it's perfect. Thank you.
But that's it. You're never gonna catch me being this nice ever again.
I could work on your punching with you, if you like.
She rewarded me with getting to punch her in the face, so I absolutely did.
Pretty addictive, right? You do it once, it just makes you want to do it more.
Sure, but the problem with punching is that why punch when gun? Anyways, we headed straight for the faction of the pathetic cowards who assumed that big, ugly Gen 1 Iron Man suits would protect them.
I'd like a large atomic shake and a double Brahmin burger.
Listen up. I'm in charge of security around here, and I can't say I'm too happy about having an outsider waltzing around. But since you came in with Veronica, I'm inclined to cut you a little slack. Just behave yourself.
I was in. This non-stop talking simpleton actually did it, and they let me go face to face with their leader.
When Paladin Ramos informed me that Veronica was approaching with an outsider in tow, at first I didn't know what to think.
It was a good day.
What do you say, outsider? Are you willing to help us?
He asked for help, and what better way to betray than to gain trust?
Then allow me to explain our situation.
Unfortunately, he then went on some long, boring rant of whatever their bunker is and who's a part of it, and that basically gave me all the more reason to kill them all, but all in due time.
I'm glad I can count on you.
So I left their bunker for the moment and went out to complete a fetch quest of ripping the dog tags off of all their fallen comrades. However, I immediately fell into a separate predicament.
This is a dangerous place, human, especially for your kind. I suggest you turn back.
The mutant seemed almost too concerned.
Yes, I hear that sometimes.
And that concerned me, so I shot him repeatedly. I then proceeded to slaughter every last mutant on this mountain, and if they pretended to be friendly, I saw right through their ruse all the more. As I splattered mutant guts and gore all over the side of the mountain, what really fascinated me was how roller coasters were invented to distract people from sin, as a popular pastime in the 1880s were brothels and saloons, so it only made natural sense that roller coasters were the saving grace of mankind. But yeah, everyone was dead and I was hungry. I found myself looking for food at some warehouse, but only found a broken robot in need of repair, so figuring I might be able to use it to murder people.
Hello, could you please direct me to Mistress Tabitha?
Sadly, all it wanted to do was find some lady. And by lady, I meant a sad sack wasting oxygen.
Rhonda? Is that you? Don't know how to thank you for bringing Rhonda back to me, stranger. Here, take this. I won't be needing it anymore.
After it forked over all its money, I decided to put it out of its clear misery, in the most inhumane way possible. And I'm not even sure it was in misery. Regardless, I put it out of its presumed misery. One of the buildings in the area was a prison hall, and inside there was some ghoul guy doing a podcast or something.
Took you long enough, so can I go now? And if by some even greater chance the coyotes haven't picked my bones clean, I'll be at my shack.
Whoops, you startled me. And with that, I headed back out into the wild wasteland, where I encountered an enemy I had never seen before. An enemy that, when startled, would go into full flight mode. Absolutely beautiful. Nature is astounding. Well, poor me in my crippled state, I headed back to the bunker of excessively insecure homeschoolers, got disease all over their beds, and told their leader I recovered all the dog tags off their comrades, dead or antecedently alive.
They were all dead then. I suppose I'm not surprised.
He then went into another monologue about how difficult it is being in their fan club and woe is us and our communication problems and boo-hoo the Boy Scout big meanies. Well, their demands were over, as was this tea party, this game of charades they'd convinced themselves was the way. So I silently snuck around the one-way in, one-way-out bunker, snatching up the Pikachu Illustrator card, the first edition Shadowless holographic Charizard, and the Galaxy Star hologram Blastoise cards from the pockets of those that did not deserve them. I spoke to my cannibal-dressed companion, who forgot she was already clearly in a dress.
Is it a dress?
But regardless, I took everything she had of real value, and the dress. And then I created a self-destruct password, for no reason, except to immediately use it in nuking the entire bunker. Well, they hated me now, but that's okay, because their opinions would matter very little in a couple minutes. However...
Clearly you're determined to fight the Brotherhood. Well, you can add my name to your hit list, because you're on your own.
She said that like it was a bad thing. But I wouldn't kill her. I would just slightly make her not able to properly use her right leg. You know, give her a chance. And with that, I booked it out of this complete dump of an establishment that was filled with inherently incompetent, egotistical cowards that possess not much more than dangerously low intelligence. I mean, you might even look at what I did here as a mercy killing, a justifiable euthanasia. I made sure all the doors were locked securely behind me for the more determined, and made my quiet exit into the night. And with that, the faction of no-good fetch quest-giving, gamer-chair-sitting, power-armor-flexing simpletons was eradicated, and I was hungry, so I went back in for pancakes. But somehow one of them actually had the knowledge to escape. Unfortunately, not the knowledge to wear a helmet. And I got my meal in the end anyway, so all was well in the world. Well, as I went back to check and make sure the bunker was sunk, I found none other than undressed dress lady, bones crushed in the rubble. But unlike most Marvel characters, I actually kill my enemy, permanently. And with a skip in my step and flesh between my teeth, I headed back out into the open, stagnant wasteland. However, while the wasteland might sleep, I got shot in the part of my brain that requires that weakness, which makes nighttime a good time to hunt. And my rule of thumb is that if you can shoot a gun, you should, and constantly. and at things, which worked out perfectly because much like humans and their ability to find coins or buttons in the lint rack of their dryer, I find extra bullets and dynamite. And so I opened up fire on an unsuspecting camp of Boy Scout patch-seeking poltroons who spend more time doing up their boots than they ever have in a social situation. Their weak, fragile bones shattered under the sheer impact I was able to deliver. Their blood painted the cold Mojave floor to one day tell a story that no one would know. Their screams in the night could power Monstropolis for years. But what really filled me with an unquenchable amount of satisfaction was knowing that shrimp have an open circulatory system, meaning that they have no arteries and their organs just float around in their blood. Well, I spoke to the one remaining person of the graveyard I just created, but he didn't seem to have the time to speak with me at the moment.
I really don't have time to chatter right now.
Scratch that. Now he's the one remaining person. And just like that, I had my bit of overnight fun and headed back out into the wasteland to begin cleaning up any loose ends. And just in time too, as I came across a lone settlement towards Vegas filled with naysaying peons who slightly disagreed with my opinion on how to properly caramelize onions. So I killed their entire family with incredible amounts of prejudice and ill intent. And then, I was caught off guard. A moment, a flash in my unprecedented existence where my unscrupulousness ceased, as if every fiber of my being knew that the irreversible trauma caused in the next seconds, which currently felt simply eroded, would eclipse all and anything I could do afterwards. But just like that, those thoughts vanished from my being, and then I made a pincushion out of this pathetic morsel. I had a quick bite to eat before hitting the long road back to Vegas, where I was, indeed, so filled with rads that a 2000 skater boy would be jealous. Therefore, I arrived at a doctor's office and made sure to get thoroughly cleaned up before the big day's incoming.
Welcome to the New Vegas Medical Clinic. This will only take a few minutes.
They injected me with something not heroin, so I killed all the doctors and their patients immediately. Well, maybe this will at least make Arcade forget I sold him into slavery. I had totally forgotten about getting the ball rolling for the Wasteland's future, so I headed back to the checker player's suite, finally spoke to Yes Man.
Oh, hi again.
And then sent him over to Lucky 38 to completely take over the city.
Mr. House is out of the picture and you have the platinum chip? Wonderful. Hi. This is big, huh? Mr. House had quite a setup here. I can access his databanks and view telemetry on every Securitron on the network.
He told me I had a couple factions left to deal with before going on my final adventure.
I remember that Benny used to pay a receptionist at Gamora for information. Maybe she knows something.
So I headed over to Star-Lord's girlfriend's place to speak to a bunch of thugs and gangsters.
Hey, no one but Omertas are allowed to carry guns into Gamora. You'll get these back on your way out.
I immediately came into conversation with a small, insignificant man who smelled of cigarettes and Axe body spray.
I hear you've been asking questions about me. What the f do you want?
So I figured he needed to go.
Looking to get yourself burned? I don't give half a what you heard. Now get the f out of my face before I burn you, sorry.
So I just informed him quickly that I had dirt on him, as to which he took the bait and panicked for his worthless life.
That book can get me killed if the wrong people see it. Let's talk. What do you want? What can I do for you?
Then unfortunately, I could not take myself amidst all these witnesses.
I can't stop you, but that's gonna mean my death.
However, that was my ticket into the head honcho's lounge.
Hey buddy, Zawara is off limits to everyone but family. Okay, calm down. I'm just doing my job.
So I headed directly there to psycho-splain to him.
You got something you need to talk about?
But of course not without first prying a couple bucks out of his fragile little wallet.
Okay, that sounds fair. Yeah, we are going to have some words for Cucino. Meet me in my office.
And just like that, we were holding a little club meeting upstairs for some peaceful discussion.
Cucino, you really disappointed me.
Luckily, his blood kept the seat warm for me.
Thanks for bringing Cucino's transgressions to our attention. Shame we had to put him down.
Unfortunately, it was a fruitless conversation, so I instead just broke into the upstairs penthouse suites and came across someone of actual use.
Hey, nice to meet you. Do you need help with something? You see, I do explosives, and they have a special need for some big explosions. Thing is, they don't need things to blow up. They need people to die in a fairly large area in a fairly small time frame.
Well, that sounded good to me, so I told him how to do his job.
Spot on. You're a bright one. I figure chlorine gas is the way to go. It's toxic, and I can rig it up to do a whole lot of killing in a fairly short time frame.
And then I set out to find as much chlorine as I could possibly acquire. But on my way to Chlorine Incorporated, I got jumped by a bunch of thugs who immediately regretted the situation. I then got distracted by a local karaoke clubhouse or something, so I wandered on in and went directly to the boss, who just told me,
I did have something, but a close friend of mine got whacked, and now I got nothing for you. Sorry about that.
So then I accidentally tripped and pulled out my plasma rifle and killed everyone in the room, unfortunately also tripping into the doorframe. And then I slipped on a banana someone left lying around and accidentally pulled the trigger while aiming perfectly at all the survivors, as to which I thought I heard someone insult my mother, and the trauma sent me into a state of shock where I mistakenly pulled out a revolver and blasted the king's leg off, and then somehow a sniper just materialized in my hands and pointed itself at the groupies. I just don't even know how to explain it. So after that series of unfortunate events, I went outside and killed the rest of them in cold blood. And with that out of the way, I headed to Chlorine World, where a person of high enough intellect could obtain as much chlorine as needed.
I do, but that's some dangerous stuff.
Fortunately, I was also a man of great science.
I think that sounds reasonable, as long as you weren't going to do anything dangerous with it.
I delivered the entirety of the chlorine to the bomb guy.
Hey, did you track down some chlorine for me? Great, yeah, this is just what I needed.
Knowing full well that that would be the end of the strip. But hey.
Thank you. Here's a little cash from us to you.
I got a couple of caps, so that was neat. I then remembered some unfinished business, so I rushed back to that town where I first encountered the LARP faction and killed everyone not on a cross. However, something was glowing across the street from the town at Ye Olde Drive-In Theater. I inspected the satellite, which ended up sending me to some sort of disgusting pacifist Disneyland.
I thought I heard the pacification field kick in.
Of course, I then found some robots who decided to read me the entirety of Game of Thrones. Not knowing a lick of what they just said, I enjoyed the little tune, and then I literally killed every single living or non-living being wherever I was. I took pride in the fact that wood frogs in Alaska can hold their urine for up to 8 months, and it helps keep them alive by recycling it into nitrogen while they hibernate. Well, everyone was dead and I had a gun with a dog's brain in it. Then I found the brave little toaster's alcoholic uncle.
I am online once again! Tremble, world, before my electric heating coil of doom!
So I killed him. Oh, and I also performed surgery on myself to turn myself into a Terminator. Typical Tuesday thing. After murdering everyone there, I wandered back to the wasteland, tripped off a cliff, yet found myself falling into exactly where destiny would have me be. A vault. Now, typically vaults are useless to someone like me, as most of them just have insane people that can't feel pain in them, or already dead people. However, I ran into a waste of oxygen back in Vegas who told me of someone that went missing here, so I assumed they'd be in pest control to make it easy on me. I slaughtered my way through heaps of plant life and mantis life, all of them being unreasonably thick-skinned for what were not very satisfying kills, until I stumbled across exactly what I was looking for.
Took your sweet time. I suppose the NCR sent you?
I needed confirmation this was who I thought she was.
She's such a dear. Not like that pompous little pedant she works for.
She was. I couldn't wait to eventually go back to the clinic lady and tell her I found her friend. I'd maybe even bring her back a few pieces. And so my lunch break was over. It was time to get back to work. I made my way down the long road of some random mountain, avoiding super mutant behemoths and door-to-door salesmen until I stumbled across some massive lodge.
Welcome to Jacobstown, human. You're free to walk around. Just don't stare at the Nightkin. They don't like people looking at them.
I couldn't quite tell what to think of this place yet, but I was on guard.
Jimmy! Little Jimmy! My, how you're grown up! So good of you to come visit your grandma.
Yeah, this was definitely a hostile camp, and they meant to cause me great harm, so I decided to do the same, but first. And then I was proven right. After I shot the head straight off the lady, they on purpose decided to attack me, after all I had done for them. Well, after killing the ones that were most hostile, I looted the gun off the dementia lady and waltzed inside the lodge. Now at first they seemed rather timid, maybe even willing to barter, but the doctor revealed their true intentions, and so having absolutely no choice, not one other option, no, not even the slightest opportunity to do anything remotely different, I used incredible amounts of force to reason with these absolute brutes, but none of them wanted to just let me kill them without putting up such a fuss. Well, in the end, I put an end to these insanely hostile bandits, still in great shock from their utter betrayal of someone they just met passing through. Turns out the Boy Scouts were there watching the whole thing unfold.
With the big guy dead, I guess we're done here. You've made my employers very happy.
But I knew that they were no better than the mutants I just folded, so I decided to send a message to their faction. Except I forgot to leave one of them alive to deliver the message, so it just ended up being regular old murder. Things were starting to get complicated, to say the least, and faction eyes were beginning to furrow their brows at what my true intentions were.
One of my aides said you got into the Lucky 38.
I figured the best way to stop them from trying to look harder into my actions was to shoot out their eyes.
This could take a while. This should help with the pain.
First of all, I did, of course, get a checkup. Don't want this radiation turning into something worse.
Anything else?
And then I butchered them all there on the spot. It was just so funny to me that a faction of doctors with all the healing in the world couldn't out-heal my DPS. Someone called my name. Murderer! So to uphold my reputation, but they were just the beginning. Most of Vegas was out of the detonation range of the dirty bomb, which meant that I had to pretend to be one in the meantime. When everyone in the casino was dead, I went to the guards to let them know that they were fired. I went around to visit some of the locals, and I also checked up on Mick and Ralph. But while I was just trying to do my job, I was jumped by a thug.
Give me all your cap. Whoa, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was you. Please don't hurt me. I've got a wife and kids and pets and stuff.
I don't know why they always tell me that stuff. Like, what do you want me to say? Good for you? Or congrats? Or whatever? But naturally, killing everyone's friends makes easy enemies, so the final members of the karaoke club ambushed me. They used a bunch of kids as human shields, which was kind of petty, but they died just like the rest of the pathetic gang. Whoops, caught in the crossfire. So anyways, they were all dead and I was hungry, so I killed some homeless people real quick. I finished off the remaining people who would have even the slightest chance at surviving the dirty bomb and headed out from the now empty city. And as I wandered far off and away, I came across a passageway to hopefully something useful to me. Without thinking twice, I headed alongside the canyon wall to wherever the heck this could possibly take me. I mean, I was here, so there was a reason I was here, I just hadn't figured it out yet. Well, I read a book that Linus Tech Tips left lying around and instantly was able to activate a robot that I immediately regretted activating. I told it to shut up or I'd kill it. And then we headed off, because these kind of robots never leave you alone. Fortunately, it was semi-useful and helped hack our way through wherever we were to, well, wherever we'd end up, which ended up being looking down the end of a missile launcher barrel. After dismantling the inferior robot army, I ran to a door hoping to find some answers here, but only found...
There's your signal. Faint, but there. A woman in Kaiser's service. Looks like a bear has had its victory after all.
Well, whoever that was, I was gonna kill him. Not because I wanted to, but because they sounded too confident they knew who I was. If they knew better, they'd run. Shortly after finding out this was a missile base, my heart filled with glee as I filled these enemies' hearts with bullets and shrapnel. These snipers with their scopes were clearly compensating for something. After being heavily equipped with a various assortment of weaponry, I quietly made my way into the dark of the night, like a whisper. A still hummingbird mid-flight, my feet gliding upon the concrete as though never making contact, and those around me never knowing of my existence until the silence would take them. And then I got hit by a car. Not much long after, I found myself in a pit of weird-looking giraffes, and then immediately got interrupted by whoever this was.
At the end of the high road lies Ashton. It's Silo.
Well, the word silo is usually promising. As I ventured deeper along this, I don't even know what to call it, some lonesome road, there were heaps of bandits scattered along the trail, as though they had waited their entire life for this exact moment for me to swoop in and murder them all out of this pathetic existence. And just when I thought I had dealt with all the ruffians, The death claws weren't really all that good though, so it made things easier. I then used my agility to my agile reflexes to my cat-like nature. I just went around everything and then got chased down by this Burger King mascot who I shot his chainsaw right out of his hand, and then proceeded to watch him run right into the minefield. Well, I launched a test nuke just to make sure I still enjoyed pulling random levers, but unfortunately this was just detonated in not heavily populated airspace. On top of that, it had started to set the entire facility into an absolute state of peril, as to which I was forced to fight frogs on an elevator. Regardless, I looked at the time and realized that there wasn't as much innocent murdering going on here that I would like, so I put a bit of a bounce into my step just to rush through whoever these people were. Then my stupid robot companion's Twitch streamer said,
"The machine you brought is mine now."
And then zapped me. And then it filled up my inventory to the brim with all the crap I gave it to carry. Wonderful. Well, there wasn't much else here in the way of effective loot, so I hightailed it through the enemy's defenses, making sure to detonate every single nuke I could find, because it was fun. And as I relentlessly plowed through the weak flesh of my enemies, I took pleasure in the fact that Superman did not originally fly. He could just simply jump incredible distances. But in the 1940s, his new animators decided to give him the ability of flight to prevent the tiresome task of always having to animate him bending at the knees. Well, anyways, there was a big door, and in going through it, the life of the little robot drained from the world, and he would forever be just a forsaken piece of scrap. And with that said, I found a silo filled with nukes, so naturally, I blew them all up instantly for fun. And then I saw him, the guy, who told me the things that I forgot. I was done letting him talk though, so I whipped out a stealth boy, got unbelievably high on drugs, and pulled out a grenade launcher. I mean, I could try to explain to you what happened during that fight, but I'm gonna be honest with you. The GoPro camera footage here saved me, because I'm pretty sure I blacked out after the first shot was fired. However, I did at least end up killing Nuke Guy specifically, along with everyone else that ran into the room afterwards to avenge him or something. And finally, after all was quiet in the room, I knew exactly why I was here. To pull the greatest prank on the LARPers and the Boy Scouts. Well, that seemed to me like it'd do the trick, and so with that I took my calm and collected leave.
The couriers finally really did it. They blew up the lands west and east of the Mojave, damning them all to hell.
On top of that, the useless robot companion was ripped to pieces bit by bit, so that's pretty neat.
The courier walked until she stood again upon the edge of the divide, the last road she would walk before the second battle for Hoover Dam.
And as I exited the road, I got to watch in a glorious drunken stupor the instantaneous death of thousands off in the distance, all caused by me hitting a single button. Apparently the factions didn't think it was as funny as I did. So anyways, I quickly killed off a LARPer who wandered a little too far from home and immediately defiled a grave for 11 rounds of 9mm. I had also forgotten about the Boy Scout camp close to the road, so I skipped on over to tear them apart piece by piece, watching their lives drain into nothing more than valuable organ fertilizer. Having them gone just makes life easier. And speaking of making things easier, I suppose the LARPers still didn't quite hate me to death yet, which worked out well for me as I walked straight up to Cameron's hut and just outright killed the guy. Of course, that slightly upset the rest of the people in the tent, so naturally I had to kill all of them too, leaving only Arcade alive to watch me consume Colton in front of him. I then disarmed the doctor and had a little game of tag with him until he was it, and then it wasn't fun anymore, so I kneecapped him. He was still alive enough to take the blame for this, so I just chilled out, had a couple of cold ones, and then snuck my way to the encampment without turning a head. Unless I was, of course, breaking a neck. Well, in my grand escape via raft, some LARPers apparently found out and pursued me, not only firing weapons at me, but attempting to corrupt my Fallout INI file. Well, unfortunately for them, I consider bullet holes in my body as nothing more than a new breathing apparatus. And with that thought in mind, the blood pouring from my body, I finished them off. So one final time I went back to Yes Man to let him know the boomers were on their last legs.
Then consider them ignored.
That the trailer park hippies were on a suicide mission.
Ooh, sounds dramatic. I like it.
That everyone on the strip was going to die.
You'd think it'd be bad for the strip, but I guess it must be good.
The Brotherhood was obliterated.
You really know how to make a robot happy.
And then I returned the white gloves to cannibalism.
You did? That's an unusual approach. But I know it makes sense somehow if you're the one doing it. The problem is me.
On top of that, the Boy Scouts hated me.
You are so misunderstood. Well, it's their loss. Take the module to the El Dorado substation and attach it to the power control terminal. I'll handle the rest.
And just like that, I was set on course for the grand finale. Thing is, not a whole lot of folks would be affected by one final fight between factions. Everyday folks would just keep on living. I mean, sure, in misery, but that's no way to live when they could be dead, so I took it upon my shoulders to head first to Novak and kill every man, woman, and animal that Hodung Town thought it could foster. A lot of people just outright hid in their homes as if I hadn't already stolen all their keys to their houses. And as I murdered the remaining few who ran the town, I also assassinated every last dinosaur. And just to make absolute sure the town wouldn't make another dollar. It was quite a tedious task, as it also cost me a good amount of bucks to afford all the ammo, but in the end I knew it was for the best. And then I headed back to Prim, as I had forgotten about the couple few sheriffless peasants living within. My first course of action, of course, was to appoint a new sheriff in town.
Howdy, partner.
A robot.
Law enforcement protocols reinstated, partner. Initializing use of force authorization. Authorization found. Yeah!
With no emotional attachments or understanding of human sentiment and or pain. And that made it a lot easier than to just murder everyone else in the entire casino who figured they could do things like, you know, exist and such. And so I bid the new sheriff farewell, and good luck.
A lawful use of deadly force is in progress. Citizens are advised to clear the area.
On my final tour across the Mojave, I visited good old Goodsprings to say hello to the last remaining members of the Powder Gangs.
I figure we'll hang around Goodsprings for a while.
Well, luckily these guys were all just bunched together in the bar, which really helped me save some ammo and time. I then made sure to clean up the rest of the town, because this was going to be a fresh start, people. It was hilarious that they thought the nukes were the worst thing that could happen to this country. The second last stop was the trading post where I picked up that Brotherhood ship. No, I didn't really want these people doing a whole resistance thing later on. And finally, to the rather empty Boulder City, but just to grab a drink. My finger slipped. Well, that was it. No more loose ends, expendable civilians, or people not tied to some sort of train track somewhere out there. With Yes Man's suggestion, I snuck into a Boy Scout power station without being detected. Because there was no one there, and powered everything right on up. Yes Man creepily watched from a distance, and then he dragged me across some hills until we arrived at none other than a big empty desert view. He then merged us, becoming one, experiencing everything as if I were him.
Same as always, but not tonight. 3, 2, 1. Pretty nice, huh?
The only thing that changed was that I hated everyone more now. But regardless of how I felt, I went back to the dump of a city, decided to play chicken with a live grenade stuffed in some lady's back pocket.
Holy...
She lost, and went up one last time to speak with Yes Man to commence the battle at Hoover Dam.
Are you ready to head for the dam? Caesar's Legion is due to attack at any moment.
Sure. Guess I have some time to kill.
Great. Good luck. See you at the dam.
Everything was perfect. Well, right off the bat, I eliminated the pathetic Boy Scouts that hadn't even managed to breach the runt forces, and the hippies were clearly suffering from cowarditis, so I had to put them down myself. A moment of silence for the death of the clan. So anyways, I kept on blasting through Clayton's forces without breaking a sweat, and at one point I even got to finally use my illegal anti-material rifle. Man. Imagine if the cops caught me using this bad boy. Well, it did not take long at all to decimate the first underbaked batch of weaklings sent out, and I had already begun my assault on the dam interior. I could feel Arcade's presence watching me from the grave, so naturally I used his ripper to rip apart a couple of his friends. I knew he'd get a kick out of that. The assault on the dam wasn't quite the experience I was hoping for, as barely any worms were sent out to defend it. Well, I made do with what I had and hit a sick trick shot just to pass the time. However, I did peek a corner and was filled with pure joy when I saw powered armored up Boy Scouts. Here I specifically used dynamite to turn their suits of armor into an over-glorified metal bowl housing their broken limbs and blood. After that fun was over, I spoke to Yes Man on Skype.
Hi! Nice to see you again. We can blow up the dam's generators, or I could route the dam's entire power output to the fort. That'll activate a certain army of Securitrons and set them loose to ravage the Legion. What do you say?
Sent power right to the fort.
Yes! This is gonna be fun!
Turns out some of the weapons I had were useless, so I just had to resort to ye old faithful shotgun. And in no time, I had restored the power from the dam. Now, it didn't take long before the LARPers were sending their finest to die by my hands, and after they were dead, I got to bask in the glory that was Arcade's flaming funeral casket. And as I watched the LARPers camp burn by my hands, the death of all within it, they shunned me. Well, it didn't matter, because I had a chainsaw and enough narcotics to kill an elephant. So hardly able to see through all the rainbows and butterflies, I cut down any of the remaining soldiers within the LARPers' camp. They did try to run, and I'll admit it was hard to catch them with all the blood filling my lungs, but I managed. And with that in mind, they now hated me. Well, the rebound was wearing thin, but the alcohol started ramping up, which made me see things like alive people.
And who are you to come before me? You bear the insignia of the bear, yet you do not wear it as a soldier of the West wears it.
Hey, give me your mask.
We shall see how brave you are when nailed to the walls of Hoover Dam. Your body facing west so you may watch your world die.
Well, I wasn't quite sure if this guy was real or it was just the alcohol talking, so I revved up that chainsaw and cut him down on the spot. But I did it. I killed all of them, and in doing so, I managed to wait off the effect of the alcohol. And I grabbed the mask off of whoever this was, I'd already forgotten. But of course, as I figured everything was already over, the Boy Scouts were here to sell cookies.
Caesar on the cross. Been a long time since I've seen the kind of work you've laid down today. And the screams of those Legion as they kick dirt running east like a choir of angels to my ears. Could use 100 of you. Just scatter you over the east like jacks.
As much fun as cloning sounds, I'd probably just end up killing myself. So I infomercialed the Boy Scout leader.
And, well, these boys with you? Hello there, Smiley.
His fear was the greatest appetizer.
Guess it ain't no secret how you, I say, can you ask them to put their weapons down? Was just reaching in my coat to give you a cigar.
You lost, General. You're an embarrassment and a big nerd.
I would sooner spit on the grave of my dead mother than let some courier walk the wasteland talk to me like that.
As much as I desired to kill him right then and there, I wanted the moment to be just right.
I know you're riding high right now, but let me tell you, you ain't pissing on me right now. You're pissing on the bear.
Well, soon I'd be pissing on your dead corpse, so potato, potato.
You want me to make tracks out of here? Head back west? Tail between our legs? No. I came for a fight today. And if you're looking to make me budge, you better have a good left hook or I'm not going anywhere.
So then he decided the best course of action was to threaten me. But my incredible understanding of speech destroyed him immediately, shattering his fragile little ego.
Yeah. But I wasn't expecting a fight when I came up here. Think you got the guts to carve out a frontier? Build towns, protect the roads, run supplies, train troops?
I had none of that, but frankly, I wouldn't need any of it because everyone was dead.
I'll give my superiors my opinion, but I don't think they're going to listen. So if NCR comes at you, and it will, pray you're ready. I promise you, our situation's reversed, I'd see you hang.
But reverse back to me, I'm just gonna throw you off Hoover Dam.
What the hell? No, get away from me, you TV on wheels.
And just like that, the Mojave felt more peaceful. Probably because everyone was dead.
You did a super job wrapping things up, and I'm not just saying that because I have to. We accomplished a lot together. It was fun. Take care.
And so the courier who had cheated death in the cemetery outside Good Springs cheated death once again. The courier, with the aid of Yes Man, drove both the Legion and the NCR from Hoover Dam, securing New Vegas's independence from both factions. She ensured the fall of Mr. House and the end of the Legion's and NCR's influence over New Vegas.
Though some super mutants in Nightkin continued to journey to the legendary Utopia, they found little trace of its existence. Some eventually found their way to Jacobstown, but many wandered off into the wastes, confused and disheartened.
After a long and eventful life, Raoul's luck finally ran out during his time with the courier.
With little law left in the wasteland, the Brooms continued to defend themselves against the prospectors and scavengers invading their territory.
Buried beneath tons of rubble, the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel was no more.
At odds with leadership over the Brotherhood's future, Veronica looked to the Mojave wasteland for an answer both she and they could live with. But the answer would never come, and the dangers of the world that had left the Brotherhood of Steel behind would eventually claim her life.
Fiends overran Camp McCarran during the Second Battle of Hoover Dam. In the anarchic months that followed, the Fiends asserted dominance over Outer Vegas.
With no clear leader to guide efforts in Freeside, the followers of the Apocalypse lost control of Old Mormon Fort to local thugs and junkies. Eventually, using the followers' remaining supplies to manufacture drugs, the Old Mormon Fort quickly devolved into little more than a junkie den.
Though Arcade's intentions were pure and his goals were noble, he ultimately succumbed to the harsh brutality of the Mojave, like so many before him.
Travelers continued to stop by Goodsprings Source for water on the Long 15, but rarely would anyone venture into the ruins of Goodsprings itself. Those who did were almost always tourists, come to visit the graveyard where the courier rose from the dead.
Rose of Sharon Cassidy died as her caravan died. In an unmarked grave, another victim of the Mojave.
After their suicidal last stand at Hoover Dam, the Great Khan ceased to exist as a tribe. The few surviving members dispersed, joining up with other tribes and gangs across the Mojave, and quickly forgot their heritage.
With Jacobstown's leadership destroyed, the remaining super mutants and Nightkin of the West scattered across the wasteland. Jacobstown withered away, its death going unnoticed by the rest of the Mojave.
Lily's long life finally came to a close in the Mojave wasteland. As the life faded from her, her last thoughts were of her grandchildren.
With the king dead and most of their gang slain by the courier, the remaining kings fled the area, never to be heard from again.
Despite their vigilance against potential attacks by the Legion, the citizens of Novak were no match for the courier. The motel and Dinky the dinosaur were left vacant, a rare stop at best for travelers along Highway 95.
The Powder Gangers are no match for the battle-hardened troops of the NCR, and summary execution awaited the Powder Gangers who managed to survive.
Armed with a wide array of improvised explosives and stolen weapons, the Vault 19 Powder Gang tormented the Mojave wasteland for years. Citizens of the NCR were favorite targets, and they always suffered the worst fates.
Prim, already torn apart by Powder Gangers, was dealt a killing blow by the courier. Though prospectors pick through the remains of the town from time to time, no one reestablishes it as a settlement.
And so the courier's road came to an end, for now. In the new world of the Mojave wasteland, fighting continued, blood was spilled, and many lived and died just as they had in the old world. Because war never changes.